Yo, what's up, future pathology legends? Today, we're diving deep into the types of necrosis because let's be real, cells don't just die, they die in style. We're gonna break down the different types of necrosis, their causes, and where they happen, and how they look, both gross and microscopic. Welcome to Explained. Let's get started. Beginning with the first one, that is coagulative necrosis. Your cells basically lose blood supply, and they're dead, but they refuse to fall apart. Instead, they stay firm like a crime scene frozen in time. It is caused by the loss of oxygen supply, that is ischemia, resulting in the necrosis of the supplied tissue. Mostly seen in the solid organs except the brain. Most common in heart, kidney, and spleen. Now let's understand the core characteristic features of this necrosis. The tissue architecture is preserved for days to weeks, and the affected area has a very firm texture. Proteolysis is blocked, so eventually the dead cells persist for a while. Cells appear eosinophilic with faded or lost nuclei. Eventually, enzymes from infiltrating leukocytes break down the necrotic tissue. An area of localized coagulative necrosis is called as an infarct. But the main question still remains, why is proteolysis inhibited? Generally, in coagulative necrosis, ischemia cuts off oxygen and nutrient supply. This results in protein denaturation and also the denaturation of enzymes responsible for breaking down, like proteases, lysosomal enzymes. So there won't be any active enzymes. Since there is no active enzymes, there won't be any rapid breakdown of the dead cells. So tissue structure is preserved for days. And there is a lot of denatured proteins. So cytoplasm is packed with the denatured proteins. This gives it eosinophilic appearance. The second one is liquefactive necrosis. It is seen in cases of bacterial and fungal infections. Since microbes trigger neutrophil infiltration, the neutrophils release enzymes, so there will be a rapid digestion of the dead cells, unlike coagulative necrosis, where the cells are preserved for a while. It can also be seen in hypoxic death of the brain tissue, that means lack of blood supply, but still there won't be any pus because there is no infection. It is most commonly seen in brain during hypoxia, unique because ischemic injury generally must result in coagulative necrosis, but here it leads to liquefaction, and also in bacterial and fungal infection where there is abscess formation. The key characteristic features of liquefactive necrosis are the dead tissue turns into a viscous liquid. Unlike coagulative necrosis, it does not stay firm. And if infection persists, then there will be a formation of pus, which resembles a creamy yellow color due to neutrophils and debris. There won't be any structural preservation. Eventually, macrophages come and clear the debris, leaving a cystic space, especially in the brain. Following is an example of liquefactive necrosis in the brain. If you take a close observation, you can find a red color vacuole over there. This is due to enzymatic digestion, and surrounding it is a yellowish tint. This could be due to the fatty myelin breakdown in the brain due to brain infarct, or could be pus accumulation during infections, or in cases of hemorrhages, it could be due to heme breakdown into pigments. Gangrenous necrosis is a pretty interesting one. It is caused due to loss of blood supply in cases of ischemia, which leads to necrosis. Usually it affects the limbs, most commonly the lower leg, and also can involve multiple tissue layers. It is seen in lower limbs, especially in diabetics, atherosclerosis, severe trauma, and also in GI tract in cases of bowel infarction, which could result in gangrenous intestine. Under the gangrenous necrosis, we have three types, starting with the first one, that is dry gangrene. It is caused due to ischemia without infection. It appears as the tissue is dry, black, and shriveled. Clear line of demarcation is present between the dead and the healthy tissue with minimal bacterial involvement, seen in peripheral arterial diseases and frostbite. The next one is wet gangrene. It is caused due to ischemic tissue, but when that tissue gets infected with bacteria, it appears swollen, foul smelling, pus filled, could be green or black tissue. There is no clear demarcation. Eventually it spreads rapidly. Bacterial enzymes and leukocytes digest the tissue. That's why it is liquefaction. It is seen in diabetic foot infections and bowel gangrene. Third one is gas gangrene, also called clostridial myonecrosis. It is caused due to Clostridium perfringens infection, which is basically an anaerobic bacteria. It appears in the form of gas bubbles in the tissue due to bacterial gas production, rapidly spreading necrosis with toxin release. It's a case of medical emergency because it could lead to sepsis and death. It is seen in deep wound infections, which is contaminated with Clostridium perfringens, and war injuries. Caseous necrosis is caused due to tuberculosis and fungal infections like histoplasmosis and coccidiomycosis. It is seen in lungs, in pulmonary tuberculosis, and in lymph nodes and other organs during extrapulmonary tuberculosis. In gross, it appears dry, white, friable, just like a cheese, hence called caseous. It is not firm like coagulative necrosis, nor liquid like liquefactive necrosis. On microscopy, it is amorphous, structureless collection of debris, fragmented cells plus granular material, surrounded by a distinctive inflammatory border called as granuloma. This granuloma, which basically surrounds the caseous necrosis, consists of epithelioid macrophages, multinucleated giant cells, and lymphocytes. Fat necrosis is caused due to enzyme-mediated fat destruction, as in acute pancreatitis, or any trauma to fat-rich areas like in breast, or trauma from seatbelt injuries. It is seen in pancreas and peritoneal cavities during acute pancreatitis because it releases pancreatic enzymes, and also in subcutaneous fat deposited tissues and trauma-subjected tissues. Grossly, these areas appear chalky white deposits due to fat saponification, where the fat cells along with the calcium. That's why it's called saponification. You can also observe the focal areas of fat destruction. In microscopy, shadowy outlines of the necrotic fat cells look like ghost-like cells, and basophilic calcium deposits are also seen, which appear dark blue on staining, and inflammatory response is also generated. Let's understand how this happens. As I mentioned, it happens on acute pancreatitis. Usually when the acute pancreatitis is there, the pancreatic enzymes like lipases, they leak out, and this break down the fat cell membranes. Triglycerides inside of the fat cells are split into free fatty acids, which eventually combine with calcium, forming chalky white soaps. This is called saponification. The next one is fibrinoid necrosis. It is seen in immune-mediated vascular damages where immune complexes are attacking the vessel walls, seen basically in autoimmune diseases and severe hypertension, like in blood vessels, in autoimmune diseases like vasculitis syndromes, lupus, malignant hypertension, where there is a severe high blood pressure and it can damage the vessel walls. Let's understand the pathological process behind it. Antigen and antibody complexes deposit in the vessel wall and they damage it. So the plasma proteins like fibrin, they leak out of the vessels because of its damage. The walls get thick, inflamed, and appear bright pink on staining. On microscopy, this bright pink deposits in the vessel wall are seen. These are formed due to immune complexes and plasma proteins leaking out, and they form an amorphous and fibrin-like material, hence called fibrinoid. And surrounding the vessel we have inflammation, lots of immune cells attacking the vessel. Alright, here is a question for you. Which type of necrosis is not associated with ischemia? Option A, coagulative. Option B, liquefactive. Option C, gangrenous. And option D, caseous. If you know the answer, drop it down in the comment section below. And that's a wrap on necrosis. If this video made necrosis less painful to learn than the process itself, drop a like, it keeps the grind going. Here, subscribe for more no-nonsense medical breakdowns. Oh, and don't be selfish. Share this with your friends who might need a quick revision. See you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay savage.